Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Did I say breaking news already? Breaking news. Story of my life. The real, the raw. It ain't even just my life, my experience. Give greetings. Give honor to Source, the Creator, Most High, whatever your high power is. You know, let's call a spade a spade. If it sound like a duck, quack like a duck is a duck. If it bark like a dog, is a dog. You know, if they say a hit dog or holler. Anywho, let me jump right into this. Let's give honor to the ancestors, known and unknown. I'm gonna make this one like, I don't even know. I'm gonna just really jump right into this, man. Real and raw. You're hearing it first from, well, you're probably hearing it first from a lot of people. Well, just me. And it ain't probably, this is your daily dose, your Sunday sermon or your Sunday message. Or just something that we all need right now, especially to my youth, to my young men that probably never hear this message or probably will come into this eventually. And also, you mothers, share this to your sons too, that you know that's going through something. Because I'm going to just keep it real, sweet, funky, raw, real, just whatever, man. You hearing this first from me. If you haven't already heard it from somebody else. Especially to my youth, me being where I am and then being a bridge from the youth to the present until, you know, and so forth. Having known what a lot of our elders have went through, let me tell y'all something, man. I know y'all probably heard, like, you know, one of your elders say or somebody say, man, that street life ain't it. Let me tell you something, bro. I knew since I was a jit, since I was young, since I was knee-high to a, what they call it? I almost said Billy Goat. Knee-high to a grasshopper. What they call that shit? Knee-high to something. That's like an old saying. I forgot. Knee-high to something. But anywho, I knew, and a lot of you already been knowing this, I knew specifically when I was younger that I was going to have an impact on this world like no other. Not just on this world, in this world, but even more confidently now, not caring about acceptance from external acceptance or validation and so forth, having to recover that part of myself and really speak my truth and walk in it and live in your truth. Let me tell you, young men or whomever that sees it, especially you, the greatest thing you can ever do is live in your truth. Not your mama, not your daddy, not nobody else. Your truth. Meaning that whatever the Most High has given you, your gifts, you know, what you love to do, music, in a sense of like, that really brings you joy, arts, whatever it is, like something that you know that you don't ever have to question. And if it comes to a place where you make, you know, you can create a life around that to be financially free or abundant, but more so not just a financial aspect, the emotional aspect, the spiritual liberation, the love that liberates you when you know that what you do it with compassion and passion from a place of just knowing that you don't ever have to question your character. You do that shit with integrity. I knew since I was young, I always knew within myself that I was always great. I was always amazing and beautiful. Now, due to unforeseen circumstances or due to things in my childhood that I had to experience that brought me here today, that little boy that I always speak about, the inner child, has still been there, nudging away, pulling me back in, like grabbing my hand, like this adult me, like pulling me back in, like, hey, this is what we really love to do. We really like to express ourselves. We really like to be silly. We really like to create. We really like to just, you know, be the best version of ourselves, no matter who's looking, who's watching. So one thing I always knew is, like, when I grew up, I had cousins you know, that were into certain things. And, you know, a lot of us are familiar with certain things, like due to demographics, like the drugs. And a lot of us, being my age, a lot of our mothers and fathers were I don't want to say victim, but, you know, a part of the crack epidemic around the 80s and late 80s and so forth. And, you know, certain drugs and so forth, heroin, and, you know, a lot of deep things that they really never told us about, but some of us was firsthand right there. One thing about me is, like, I was faced with those same vices and traumas. I was faced with it. Like, I was literally faced with it. Never got into those that, you know, got into heroin, crack, or nothing heavy like that. I did at a point in time when I was modeling, when I was in California living. That's when I got into, you know, trees is what we call it, or weed. But my thing, where I realized, I start to be aware, like, how it really just made me feel like, again, everyone has their vices. I'm not sitting here telling people to live the life I live. I just start to be aware, like, the effect it had on me. And then, you know, it can make people lazy. It can make people, like, just more hungry, as they say, do certain things. But for me, let me tell you something, man. That one of the most greatest things that I realized that I could have became, or in the becoming of, is a father. Now, when I reflect and look at my life and then see the perspective of what a father really is, I start to realize how much of a father figure I was and still is to, whether it's community, people, the youth, and so forth. When you're out in communities, or even when you're doing certain things that reflects back to them, the father figure, or a healthy part of that they've never noticed. Now, a part of not just being a father is a great thing, but it also illuminates and mirror back to you the parts of you that you never had, or never seen. So that's where the challenges comes in. That's when it's asking of you, in my previous video, to whom is given, much is required. So I'm realizing much more is required of me to be responsible, not only for myself, but for others around me. And, like, one real fucking thing I'm gonna tell y'all, like, some real ish, bro. Some real shit, bro. I don't ever know whoever convinced us to think that being in the streets, being a part of certain things, which I do realize a lot of us have had traumas, a lot of us are facing things, or probably don't even know how to regulate our emotions, or are probably going through a lot of things traumatically, psychologically, to where a lot of youth believe that that's the life that that's all they know, and that's what they've been given. And I'm here to tell y'all, for whoever this message is for, like, bro, let me tell you, that programming, that false programming of what we thought a solid foundation has absolutely really nothing, in my perspective, to do with what you really obtain materialistically, without first knowing the importance of the foundation within yourself, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. That means, like, you can go out here, and like I said, I try my best to run with those guys. I try my best at times to run with people, thinking like, oh, I gotta be a part of this crowd. But me, deep down, I could never, ever, I'm talking about within myself, that's how much I know how divinely protected or just guided that I was, even to speak these messages and say these things, is because I couldn't. I'm not gonna lie to you, I could not. I've always moved the way I moved, in a way, like, those who really know me, it's like I've always pioneered or trailblazed my own path. And many are afraid of that. Many are afraid of, like, losing out on friendship, walking away from people, realizing, like, they cannot go where you're going, or they're not ready for the vices that you're facing, and the fears that you are, internalizing, and things that come up. I know from my experience, from knowing men that never face really who they are, they're not ready to be a father. And what I mean by that, what that encompasses is like, they're not a part of what being a father is. It's like, again, it's more so on the emotional level as well, because you don't just protect your loved ones physically with what you provide financially. You also, a part of you is asking as a man, as an individual, to show up for you emotionally, regulate your emotions so that you can also guide that boy and little girl in said, through your actions and how you regulate your emotions. It would be different from a woman, a little girl, and a boy, because, from a boy's perspective, being a father, you're mirroring back to him like, okay, is my father emotionally safe or secure? Well, emotionally secure to know how to make certain decisions that will affect us all. As a little boy, he will see that. For a little girl, it's like, is my father emotionally safe for himself? Or is he very impulsive to realize, like, is he teaching me that this is what is acceptable for all men when she does grow and experience, men throughout her life? So again, it's like, I feel from my perspective, one of the greatest lessons I've learned in my current stage and on my journey is this aspect of, like, it's an honor to be a father. At a point in time, I felt like it was a curse, because a lot of men that are wounded, we want so much of our children to experience a better life, and mothers do too. But from a lot of men, it's like, when we do, we want a son so much. And this is what you will never hear this from a man, or a man that I know, from my perspective, that a lot of men that were wounded is due to a lot of what they went through with their mother wound. I probably said this in another video, but anywho, a lot of men want a son so much, and whether he's unconscious of it or not, he's still going to inherit certain behavior patterns, or still see the real rawness of his father, no matter how tough he portrays himself, and still pick up on those nonverbal cues subconsciously, because he don't know how to emotionally regulate his emotions. So he tries to show them in this so-called bullshit culture that y'all see, which is acting like a tough guy, thinking that you got to go out there and harm another person, ending up in prison or behind bars, which is not always the circumstance. But a lot of those men, I guarantee you, psychologically, they are battling with something that they never got to discuss, or they never really had a father there presently to even have a healthy dialogue with communicatively, or someone to even comprehend what they're feeling without being ostracized, without being criticized, without being attacked, without being, devalued in some way. So when you're having years of this happening, I'm one of the very few men, through my rawness, through my authenticity, that can say, like, bro, at a time, I wanted a son more than I wanted a daughter. Why? It's because that daughter of mine reminds me so much of my feminine principles or attributes that connects me to my woundedness of what I went through with my mother and women. So now the divine's like, no, I wanted you to have a daughter because I want you to see the bridge between your pain, your woundedness, until what you're going to gain, the emotional intelligence of what your pain can be transmuted and alchemized into. If you need to rewind that. Now, also, you having a son, I want you to also realize that, pay attention to a lot of your patterns why a lot of men want a son. And they don't unconsciously recognize that they show a favoritism. And I've seen this happen a lot. They unconsciously show a favoritism because they're running from the feminine attributes of themselves. They're running from the emotions. So practically, because naturally we are more logic, not to say we don't both have logic or, be logical and emotional. We all have that feminine, masculine attribute. What I'm speaking about is, like, I'm recognizing things, the balance between a son and a daughter. One is more naturally emotional. The other one is more practical or logical. So as a little boy, you know, they're going to process stuff in their mind. So a lot of mothers don't realize, like, yes, he has emotions, but what type of women is he around that are healthily guiding him to regulate his emotions from a younger age to where he's become emotionally stable? And is there even a man in there to balance that out in a more logical, emotional way? And what you see again, my greatest thing that I realized that I was so fucking afraid of was to be a father. I wanted so much to be one, but I didn't realize how much of the fears that it would bring up. I didn't realize how much of the fears of failing myself and kids, like the illusion of the failing aspect, or how a lot of us have created kids and not even emotionally prepared. This is what you have seen generationally happen, where you have mothers and fathers or people who have met in their younger days, and yeah, everybody wants to be married, but unrealistically, they're not even ready emotionally. I had to accept that. I had to realize even a point in my life where I need some chapstick. I be talking, boy. Point in my time where I had to split from the mother of my child, reason being is because I'm able to recognize my role. Something that I didn't even notice. Something I didn't even know, that childhood traumas and, you know, wounds that can come up relating to my mother, relating to the women. And what I realized is, like, we unconsciously push people away because we don't even know how to, not, number one, with men, is that we have seen so much of a pattern of culture of, like, how to abuse women emotionally, mentally, physically, and not realize how much we're doing it to ourselves. And then you have our women who have been ever felt safe within themselves, so they unconsciously manipulate men, their sons, into believing that I love you, son. In actuality, they don't even love themselves enough. They haven't even, I don't like to use the term, I'm gonna use the term falling, but I like to say stand in love, because I met a sister a while back to say you need to stand in love, don't fall. But I'm gonna use the term falling, but just to realize that we stand in love, stand in truth. But you know, a lot of us haven't even fallen in love with ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we don't even like. So when you're talking about women and mothers that have these unrealistic viewpoints on what love really is, and it's coming from a belief system that is literally self-sabotaging or self-sacrificing their joy, their love, you know, a pattern that has cycled through generations, they sacrifice so much of themselves for their kids. So then when they do, you know, interact with a man, and then before they even have the kids, so let's say they interact with them, all of a sudden, they're not even emotionally, mentally prepared, spiritually prepared. So I use this with someone else. I tell women all the time, and I was telling a sister this, I said, do you realize, like, even though you lay down with a man, you can spiritually rape yourself? And what I mean by that, and I'm using this term because I'm using this in a way of, like, how you're giving your body over knowing that you don't want to. And I've had that happen to where, you know, with myself and with other women who give themselves over to where deep down their body, and that's what I mean by spiritually raping, it's like you know you don't want to, but you allowing yourself or allowing this man to enter you, or these things happening, and you realizing, like, how disgusted or drained or, you know, emotionally, spiritually, and so forth after that happens, because you never intended that. You never wanted that. Your essence never wanted that. And it's through your wounded patterns, which men and women, boys and girls, when they grow up in their teenage age, they're thinking that this is a fucking trend. And so these are the things where I be talking about generationally breaking. There's a lot of things spiritually follow people, and they don't even know why they're doing it. So a lot of what, when I say the greatest thing is, like, for me to make it through and out of said belief systems and patterns. So when I'm sitting here telling, like, women, like, look, It's okay to stand in your love and live your truth. You know you don't want to do that, but you did it anyway. And this is where, if a lot of you that don't know or familiar with this, a lot of women need to look up, what was it? Was it sexual abuse? Like people that have went through sexual abuse typically don't even realize that they can abuse someone through a pattern of giving themselves over, knowing it, like unwillingly, not knowing, like giving themselves over, but knowing that they don't want to. And it works both ways, to where this typically happens with someone who's been sexually abused, and they go through this pattern where you can see people, I've talked about this before, like go through a pattern of having multiple partners and so forth, sexual partners, and being intimate. And so what ends up happening is, like, they don't even realize, like, you're also abusing that other person, because it's almost like this is where you can see where, you know, those allegations come in, those 8 allegations, into where people don't realize, like, you know, a woman don't know, like, she thinking that this is okay. In her programming, she's not willingly wanting to do these things, so because she never had a mother and her father or someone to instill in her, like, this has nothing to do with your worth as a woman, as a little girl. You know, as you grow, this has nothing to do with your value, your worth. So I started to sit back and realize, like, the awareness that I was coming into and why it was meant for me to talk and discuss these things. Because again, to my young men, like, bro, when I look at the culture and the shit that we grew up in, bro, it was never for me. It was never for me. I couldn't conform to it. I couldn't pretend if I wanted to. And then when if I tried to put on the mask, it would eventually fall off. I've always known myself to be a lover, but now I realize the importance of loving myself. The lover that will overgive from a wounded place. Now I'm realizing, like, you know, I couldn't be a part of the dope game. I couldn't be, it just wasn't me. I couldn't be a part of, you know, the fraternities. I couldn't be a part of, you know, anything that almost like to make people seem like they just had to feel accepted, validated. I couldn't be a part of it. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't. And it's like, because I know personally people who went down that road, especially like cousins, relatives, and so forth, or whatever, that have been in prison most of their life. And when I look now at what has happened, I'm starting to pay attention, like, there's a pattern here. There's a generational thing here. And I knew I had to be the one to, that, again, have this awareness to break that generational chain. So then I told myself, I'm like, okay, now that you have this awareness, what are you going to do with it? And so when you see the youth out here, and, you know, we don't want to see it on a deeper level, but a lot of them, they don't have no healthy, like, or they haven't had a consistent, healthy dialogue or connection with men, period. I'm talking about consistently for years. So when we're asking of them to be something, and when you're just pushing them into school and sports, you're still, like, discarding their emotions. You're still discarding how they really feel about even those decisions. Because you're just telling them to push them into sports and to stuff where they still have emotions. They just using all that built up repressed emotions and memories and shit and taking it right out on everybody else. And so then when they get to certain places, they crash out. They don't know nothing about money management. Shit, I sit back now and I was telling myself, I'm like, bro, the awareness and things that I'm coming into, I've spoken before in my previous video. You know how important it is, not just for men to be there, but a man that's stable in himself, that's secure, that's honest, that's authentic. That's very rare. What the fuck can the athlete or somebody out here that, okay, they have this money, but what can they do personally in our lives? Okay, you can come and provide something for the community, but what are they doing personally? What are they doing face to face? And it's like, I know nothing about those people, so I don't judge, but the thing I'm looking at is like, when you see these youth and how, they still have devices they have to go home to. I see you, the young ones. Even if your life isn't due to the same demographics, people can still have things where they can have a father present, but that doesn't mean he's approachable. These fathers still got things going on because their programming is still to provide and protect. And people always, the first thing they go to is fucking finances, bro. You're literally creating more robots. Like literally teaching young men to numb themselves when their divine genetic makeup has everything to do with emotions first. That's what I had to learn with being in this dynamic with having kids. The first thing that most likely is going to happen is that if you have a daughter, emotions are going to be the first thing, bro, you cannot run from. And that has been one of the most challenging, most difficult things in becoming from being impulsive to now learning what it is to stabilize my emotions, regulate them, feel them first for me before I can even show up for said daughter or son or partner. Because a lot of us, and from my experience, I never had experiences where it was like, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Growing up in environments where I was consistently abused because I didn't have healthy women or men who knew how to regulate their emotions, who knew how to ask, are you okay? Who nurtured me, who touched me in a kind way. Bro, I'm telling you firsthand, that has been a challenge. Once you get into something with depth, once you start, when the universe or, the Most High gets you to facing yourself, that's when you realize, motherfucker can use some therapy, bro. Or man, it ain't just a mentor I need. You need someone, you start to realize like, wow, the awareness of who I have around me. Are they enabling more of these traumas? Or are they supportive of my emotions or my well-being? That's what I realized what has been so vital for me is like the importance of all of that is learning that what has been important for me to just be myself. Because again, a lot of men don't have that. A lot of men, I didn't want to do that on the video, but hey, I couldn't even battle it. A lot of men, it's wild because I just be honest with you. It's like, I'm sitting in the car and there was a police pull up. So the way he pulled up was like randomly. So anywho, and that's a lot of things. Like I tell y'all, like the honesty of what you battle with and how you have to be secure within yourself, because I told myself, I was like, it didn't even matter what goes on in life. You have men that are darker. You have men that battle with stuff like that. I had to tell people, like, you will never know, like, the feeling that comes up when your heart is like boom, 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 or your mind races, because that's a triggering thing. Like when the police comes up because of the demographics you have been in, and you have to tell yourself, there's nothing to be afraid of, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, and then it's the confidence and the security that you have to speak your truth, stand in it, and be yourself. So that was a little off topic, but it's the confidence in, again, a lot of us young men, especially darker, we're automatically programmed to believe that everything is against us. And then naturally, we've consistently been around and experienced firsthand what it is from the women that we care about, for the women that say they care about us, and so forth, to where we have consistently seen like people who have been and pose a threat to our lives. So for me to speak this message, it's almost like the confidence you have to realize, like, look, I love me. I'm gonna be me no matter who and what would say this. And that's from, again, personal experiences of, I'm telling you firsthand as a man, that's not just, because some of you, again, due to programming, due to whatever, y'all gonna see me naturally as someone that, okay, he's a dark man. Some may use the term black or whatever. Y'all gonna see me that at first. But I always speak on different levels of things. I always speak on levels of, like, I speak to the youth, but I also, more importantly, not just more importantly, but my targeted audience is everyone. But for most importantly, my audience to the young men that look like me, and knowing what they deal with in a country, knowing that it seems like they are a target. But I'm gonna let you know what's gonna protect you is your heart space. It's where you realize that your heart almost is like, you know, clear your heart of the things that need to be removed that you have no control over. Forgive those people. Accept where you are. What else? And that's how I even got to the confidence of being where I am. Is I should have got some water or something, but that's how I got to the confidence of where I am. Is like I had to rebuild that. To share this message and stuff like that, it takes the utmost confidence and courage to say these things, because I know the feeling of being that little dark boy that, young, that did not have that support. I know that also that feeling of even being a man now, and it still feels like you're alone or isolated. Even if you're in a relationship, or even your kids, times where it can only seem like, okay, are my kids the only one who really get me? But again, where I'm getting at it is like going to the root of, again, what I grew up in, what I experienced, and also knowing that that lifestyle that was given to me, where I didn't have the best, what you want to call, role models or characters in my life that encouraged me to be myself, you're hearing it first. It's a beautiful thing to become a man of integrity, a man of honesty. And you're going to have shortcomings. It's not going to be the best, but you don't have to beat yourself up or feel ashamed because you didn't get it right the first time. Because the thing is, you cannot mess this up. There are people I know that got out of jail. There are people I know went to prison, got out. There are people beyond that have done things, and some people have assumed that they got away, but the universe sees all. But where I'm getting at is that the importance of knowing that you are uniquely you as young men and women. So, like that random moment, like that, like seeing a lot of people don't know that feeling that comes up when you see a police come up, when you're riding and your mind will cycle, or you will feel this, it's almost like I tell you how the body keeps the score. I've had one-on-ones, I've had experiences with police, and so that doesn't just leave, those things that, again, as young men, we live with. Then you seeing things that have happened in this country where people have, that are darker, you see this thing almost like encouraged, like racism encouraged or praised. And so it's already tough enough to just tell a young man, like, don't fight him, when I've had to be there to where people have called me out of my name. And then I had to realize as I grew, like, it's not what they call you, it's how you respond. And that's not easy for a lot of young men because of their demographics, because daily they're fighting. So I get you, I see you, because I had to do the same thing. And I had to also realize, like, that how important my journey and my path was when I tell myself, like, just because they couldn't be here doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of this experience. And that's when the imposter syndrome comes in. Like, I'm success in my aspect of my life, doesn't necessarily have to look like what other people perceive it to be. You know, successfully, I'm delivering this message so that young men can know that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be authentic. It's okay, you know, to walk that path least traveled. And I'll be the first to let y'all know, if you're hearing it first or you're hearing it again, is that, man, listen, the best version of you is always awaiting. And you will always continue to be the best version once you choose to get up and change the narrative. When you choose to get up and be the main character in your life and not allow the naysayers and what your mama and somebody else said, that you ain't gonna be this, you ain't gonna be that. And I'm living proof. I'm living it. I'm walking it. That's the best decision you can ever make, is when you decide in your life that you're not going to be a product of said environment, or you're not going to allow society norms or how the powers that used to be use, you know, this narrative to try to almost set you in a place where they feel you should be, when the Most High has already noticed the greatness and, you know, the power within you. Is when you got to recognize it. And that's through the lessons of what you have experienced with yourself, how you cause others harm, or how you realize, like, the awareness around what you do and the beauty of how that affects everybody. You know, there's still beauty in the struggle, but it's worth it on the other side when you realize how much you will blossom. There's nothing I will go back to when I look at the life that I used to live, or, you know, or what I'm currently, like, learning to unlearn and heal through. No, what? Because I know that it took a lot from me mentally. You know, as I grew and still progressing, I still have to unlearn those victim mentalities of, well, I lived here, or just because this person don't look like me or my shade and they're against me, or just because, you know, learning the importance of minding my own business and then being mindful of who surrounds me. You know, the confidence in walking in, you know, being secure within myself emotionally, mentally, spiritually, so that I can walk upright. So that whatever people feel and have towards me has nothing to do with me. It's their own vices, their own insecurities, it's their own shit. And it is what it is. So I have to encourage myself daily to, like, realize, like, had I not changed my mindset, had I not realized that this wasn't for me, had I not realized, like, this no longer serves me, I had to let go of the version of that part of myself. Not nobody else. I had to let go of the version of who my mother, who this spouse, partner, or anybody believe I should be. Because no one's going to do it but me. No one's going to do it but you. So it's already challenging enough, again, a lot of us not having said healthy father figures or men who walk upright in integrity. So we've had to mother and father ourselves. And it does get better. And I'm living proof of that. And I'm going to still be living proof of that, because I know my journey is not in vain and your journey is not in vain. But again, it's like, bro, I won't ever encourage the youth or young men to be like, bro, yeah, this is what your life is. No, it's not. This is what your life should look like. And I don't mean, like, in the sense of what I mean, like, the connection to what society has told us. Like, everything you say, they, you know, you got to go to school, you got to do this, you got to do. Man, some of you are literally pioneers. A lot of you are young, are very advanced and intelligent. You're loved. You've always been loved. I love you because I know how important it is to love myself. I've had to constantly fall in, like, I don't like to use the term, but stand up for myself. My inner child had to stand up to myself first. I had to look in the mirror. I had to stand up for myself. Literally fight back, in the sense of, like, fight for custody of my inner child. And what I mean by that is, like, in the reference of, like, for me to be here where I'm at now, I had to have those conversations, uncomfortable conversations with a mother and father about, like, this is what hurt me. This is who I no longer am. I know I may be your son or your son or whatever, but I'm my own man, and I have my own thoughts. I have my own paths. I have my own journey. You can't force me to be anything that I don't want to be. You or nobody. That takes a lot of courage, because what you're doing, you're fighting for your inner child, the parts of you that you felt were abandoned and neglected by those said people in your upbringing. No matter who it is, no matter what character played a role, that's what you're fighting for. You're fighting to regain and reclaim that essence, that innocence that you seemed that was lost for so long. And I'm living proof of that daily, and even in relationships where I wasn't as aware or conscious of, what it is I wanted to be. So I had to be in that relationship for it to mirror back to me like, no, it's not that this person isn't for you, but right now you're for you. Somebody needed that. You need to be more for you right now in this season. Or in that season where you felt like, you could have shown up better and you wanted to give so much to that person. No, the divine, the Most High was showing you like, look, this was orchestrated specifically to show you that they're in their season where they need to get them together, but you're in this season where you need to focus on you. That's what was even more difficult, even for a lot of us as fathers, mothers, is that I even had to tell someone like, look, right now, as much as I want to give this and offer this, I have to show up for me more, respectfully. Now, we can try to compromise or come to this place where we can agree on something to where, where things could be better for everyone involved. Due to my upbringing in like conflict-driven environments, I never seen that. A lot of that I had to learn, unlearn, and even relearn. And in relearning, let me tell y'all this. Once you're walking and living a new path, and this has been so challenging for me, you're going to be in said environments where it is called of a version of you that you know nothing about. This is what people fear the most, is the unknown. Places where I have been, I became so familiar still with certain behavior patterns, old patterns that I had to let go, the past, where, in certain partnership, relationships, business, I would realize like I'm unlearning this pattern of someone and of myself so that this can be more harmonious and peaceful. That's what most people are afraid of, is to really see themselves, and they're quick to say it's the other person rather than coming to a middle ground or a balance or balance things out to realize, like, can you see your part? Can that person see their part? Can you agree to disagree? Can you disagree sometimes and realize, like, to even come to an agreement? To still go back and look at yourself. And that's the thing where evolution comes in through said partnerships or relationships, or even venturing out into an unknown place where it's not familiar. And then you're called to be a whole nother version. When you're in any relationship, a lot of us we love to be in something that's familiar. And I told myself, I'm like, man, I start to accept why certain things were falling apart or collapsing, because it's asked of me to build something more structurally, to be more balanced. And that's what I realized to my young men, especially. A lot of who you hang around, a lot of those people it's familiar to you. A lot of women too, it's familiar to you. And a lot of that familiarity comes with a lot of what, your traumas are connected to. It reminds you of being comfortable in that pain, or familiar with that behavior pattern. So when it's asked of you to walk away, when it's asked of you to stand up for your inner child, that part of you that is wanting to be liberated, you fear it. You're scared of it, because the fear of the probably abandonment issues, or you fear that you won't have same friends or family members. And most people are afraid of that shit. And from experience, I went through it. I had to, because simply, it's just everyone's not ready for that path of feeling like, they don't feel worthy of, that they can experience something more beautiful, more harmonious, more prosperous. Because some people think that this is all they supposed to have in this relationship, so they don't feel worthy of thinking that that can be replaced. And when you look at life, when you look at nature, everything changes. Everything is replaceable. Everything comes in and lets you know, like, do you feel like you deserve much better? And it's you that got to decide that. Wherever you are, the demographics and so forth. And it's beyond money, because a lot of things you have to be stripped of before you come into something greater. That's from experience. Young men, I'm telling you, a lot of you don't know the life of an entrepreneur. There are moments where you will go through seasons without even having anything. There will be moments where you will go through seasons where you have to learn and master the lesson of realizing that you're the asset first before you just go out there and just throw everything to the wind and so forth. Bro, lessons. People don't just become, other than a lottery, and I'm not encouraging that, but other than that, now that's different. That's someone else's path. But from my experience of going through things, it'll show you what's for you, and you need to be in this season where it's just you, or you need to be more where you thought this should work out, where you need to learn to be more independent. Yes, the path is not for everybody. A lot of people don't want to share certain things because they want to just keep it to themselves, and that's okay. That's when it's asked of you to be more confident in who you are. Can you still be confident with or without said things? This with integrity. And a lot of us, I'm telling you firsthand, I did not grow up around men that were about integrity. They weren't honest about how they wronged themselves and women. No. That's why I don't feel the shame and guilt about telling my story, speaking my truth, because it's a real thing. Players fuck up too. But hey, what? I am not perfect. And the beautiful thing about it is how I can acknowledge it and immediately recognize and see the awareness of the self-destructive or self-sabotaging behavior pattern. Like, it's a real thing. Why I see why a lot of young men or certain cousins or certain people I know like snapped or did certain things, and they not realizing, like, this universal law, what you put out, you get back. There's consequences to that, bro. I'm telling you now, no. Why do I go out here acting like a tough guy? I love me, and I loved what I've created. And why would I jeopardize that over what he say, she say said? Bro, I'm gonna let y'all know, it's beautiful to build your fucking legacy, man. Whatever that looks like to you, is it with integrity. It's beautiful to build a legacy. It is a great thing that I could create something, and it's beyond money. It's a beautiful thing that I can create something so that when I leave, so when I depart, that some of us I grew up with, your kids will see like a mural or something that empowers them. My kids will be able to see, on a deeper level, whether that's emotionally, mentally, and so forth. There's things on a deeper level where I realize, like, bro, I'm required and responsible for my emotions, even if I know that my cousins and people that were, impulsive, and then that led them to a path where, of almost like no return, or in a path where they had to sit with themselves in a said jail or whatever. Bro, it's been a process. I wasn't always here. There were moments where I felt like that flight or flight feeling because of the demographics I grew up in. The feeling I had to fight a lot growing up amongst my own family. I had to see people fight a lot. So it's been a process, an unlearning process to get where I am. Is that warrior still in me? Absolutely. It don't go nowhere. It's who you choose to honor. It's no, the dark and the light that's who I am. And what I've learned to realize is, like, people who come into my life, they decide whether they, okay, you either gonna get the dark or the light. Play with it. It's just what it is. What I'm saying is, I know it's in you. We all got anger. We all got emotions. We all got that. But the beauty of it is, like, learning the importance of, like, emotional intelligence, young men and women. The beauty of realizing, like, you were giving said circumstances. And look at my previous video where I'm talking about, like, to whom is given, much is required. Like, it's a beautiful thing, because Again, I was given these said circumstances, but it's the victory in overcoming it. Like when I look at my life presently, it's not about the finances. That money comes and goes. I'm the asset. And knowing that I'm the asset, I realized that where I'm at now, I had to recognize what the fuck was a liability even when I was a liability. You're a liability when you don't want to be better for yourself, when you don't want to love yourself, even when you don't want to accept the parts of you that, you know, that you felt someone did so much to you. It's you that is required and responsible for those emotions now. Not what happened 20, 30 years ago. Okay, you repressed it. It's been suppressed. Now it's you that's responsible for that. That's a daily thing for me. When daily I have to go through life and I have to still try to regulate my emotions when I have a screaming, daughter that's 3, and I have to remind myself, like, okay, I didn't grow up in a home like this or environment like this. I cannot allow her emotions to dictate my actions. But when you have grown up in environments like that, where it can be triggering or almost traumatic, where certain sounds and screams and certain things, bro, I'm letting y'all know from experience, get you together, man. Get you together. Heal those emotions. Face those memories, those repressed things that are deep in your body. It's a real thing. I'm facing it every day. Yes, it gets very challenging because I'm sitting here like, bro, I know I'm ready for this, but I'm gonna do the best to get through this. Because when I look at presently where I am, yes, I had to realize where I was a liability, where certain family were liabilities, and they didn't know that they were the asset. That's the beauty of this. You're either an asset or you're a liability. And when you look around your life, sit back and realize who's a liability to your purpose, to where you're going. If you're bringing up ideas, if you're coming into this awareness, and then you'll start to recognize, like, well, they're not for me. Sometimes you don't even have to say nothing. Just move on. Because that's what loving yourself is. The highest form of love is standing up, standing in the gap for you first. Then you will attract others that are aligned with that. You won't have to question their motives, their integrity. I know I got to blow my nose. But, the beauty of that, again, we wasn't around that. I wasn't around that. I'm not going to sit here like this shit being cool and copacetic. No. People use that word karmic. I have definitely been karmic to myself and other people. And that karma, or that is the energy that's playing out, that what I have to recognize. What I would experience, where I'm at now, I had to karmically play out, stand up for myself, and see what was playing out between me and that person. Whether it's a mother, father, friends, karmically in that neighborhood, that community, and so forth. You will go through things to realize that it's rewarding, yo. It's so rewarding. I'm so honored and grateful that I can share this message, because it's bigger than me. Like, it's so beautiful because, again, I had to recognize what I did not have in a childhood, but at the same time, that makes me more responsible for me now and for those who come after me. So again, liability, asset. You're an asset, but you've been a liability. And research the word, what they really mean. Yeah, I had to realize certain people were a liability because they're not wanting to expand. They're not wanting more out of life, and they really just thinking that that's all there is. It's not. That's not. You're the asset. You are the asset. It's in you, not on you. No matter what I got on, it's in me. That's why wherever I go, I'm lighting that bitch up. I'm lighting it up because what? It's in me. It ain't on me. Take care of you. Peace and blessings. Shalom.